Greetings YouTube and welcome to the Blue Corner and to the final video of Traditional Week here, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I have to admit, it was actually kind of fun playing around in the format that was traditional, which is apparently a thing here now, where once a month locals will be having a traditional format. Not a 100 card traditional, just standard traditional. And I'm not going to lie, there's so much more you can do creatively speaking in the traditional format than there is in the current format, because you have so many banned cards, which makes a lot of older decks more viable and allows for some crazy combinations with new decks. For this, I considered running Mermills because Fishborg Blaster, discarding Mermail Abyss Goon, who then special summons back another guy, and then you just ham and ham and ham, or Brionac, or Goyo. There's just so much you can do. Like, you saw what traditional cards do for Chaos Dragons, Noble Knights, and Lightsworns. So, yeah, it's actually just pretty fun to play around with all these banned cards. It's stupid and derpy, but it's actually more acceptable here because you just know it's going to happen. Like, you aren't surprised that your opponent tries to blow you out of the water with a Brigade or a Heavy Storm or a Dark Hole. Not a Dark Hole, but you get the point. So you're kind of expecting them. And in that sense, you actually have to build a deck that can play around in that format, because people who want to counter that will run things like Imperial Order and make a deck like X-Sabers, where Naturia Beast is kind of really strong because a lot of people just run banned spell cards and very few of the banned trap cards. It's just really just Ring and Oppression and Dust Shoot, but not shit like Mirror Force, Dimensional Prison, Bombs, Trapdoor, Compulse, like none of the summon stoppers. So it's kind of really hard to clear a monster when it's already established, and yeah, you just kind of have to prepare accordingly. So yeah, as I mentioned, I considered building Mermails, but ultimately I dropped them because while it did have some neat interactions with the banned cards, I just couldn't really make it work consistently. So I ended up going back to the drawing board, and that's when I just remembered, wait a minute, Rekindling is at 3, and I can still play with 3 Rekindling in a deck this weekend and the next weekend. So I'm like, Lavals? And then I realized, wait a minute, Lavals have some really derpy interactions with Painful Choice, Graceful Charity, hell, even Quasar has some dumb interactions with things like Ring of Destruction. So the decision was made. I built Lavals. I quickly wrote up a list, mulled it over, and then I had Rain593 take a look at it, get his input on it, as he is kind of a Laval guy. And then after just some yapping back and forth, we created this monstrosity, and that is traditional Lavals. And oh my god. If anything, this past weekend I proved why, number 1, Dark Strike Fighter needs his errata, and 2, why Rekindling is going to 1 and is going to stay at 1. Because just, oh my god, the things I did when I resolved Rekindling, let alone the times I resolved 2 of them, and that happened. The way this deck was built was I was going to YOLO off so hard that I would get to Quasar plays and such by turn 3 at the latest. If I didn't, then I was probably gonna not do well. Although in some cases I actually did manage to grind out the win, which was actually kind of surprising because I did not build this deck for grinding. I built it specifically to get to the combo. That being said, as for what I ran 3 copies of Laval Lakeside Lady. You kind of needed to do the stuff. Unfortunately, I opened with multiples of her a couple times, including East Blackwings in top 4 where, yeah, I just kind of fizzled out. 2 copies of Laval Cannon Magma Cannoneer, pardon me. The burn effect actually came up a couple times, namely I just put Blaster into the graveyard, did some damage, and I summoned Blaster back. 1 copy of Laval Cannon. I wanted to run more of these, but I only had the 1. It's unfortunate. I'm thinking this guy, if anything, is going to be what Lavals will base themselves around from the future on out, as it's a 1-card synchro and exceed, and you can set it up with Lakeside Lady and Blaster and Dust Flame Explosion even, or hell, what is it called? Laval token making thing. It's the one that makes a level 1 Pyre token or whatever. So I'm thinking this guy will be really, 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 really important going forward for Lavals, and we'll just see where it goes, as it does make any level 5, 6, 7, 8 Synchro Monster, or even a rank 4 exceeds. 1 copy of Lakeside Lady. Normally I would run more, but I had to kind of cut cards out of here to make room for all the wonderful things that are known as forbidden cards. 1 copy of Blaster. It's kind of really good and self-explanatory. 1 copy of Boost Warrior. ideal thing to summon when you're doing rekindling plays because you can special it from the hand. It's also a rekindling target itself, and it's food for Blaster. Then, to get to my stuff, 2 copies of Card D, 2 copies of Max C, because I am playing in an environment where people like to YOLO pretty hard with their own special summons, and Max C lets me draw into stuff like my Battle Stoppers. 2 copies of Fader, and 2 copies of Jack Frost. Fader was pretty good, and Jack Frost was kind of clutch a couple times. The main reason why I ran Jack Frost over Swift Scarecrow was that, as I mentioned, the Trigger Beast is kind of a thing here. Shien's also a thing, and just monsters that prevent me from doing stuff in general. Jack Frost puts that fucker down, and then I can banish Laval monsters from the graveyard with Lakeside Lady that just pop it without doing anything. That was a neat interaction. I like that, which is something, again, that Lavals might be able to do in the future. This guy's really, really, really good. And that's it for the monsters. For the spells. Derp. I mean, really, what more can I say about Rekindling? It's an I win button in this deck. You resolve 1, you're in a pretty good position. You resolve 2, you should be winning. You resolve 3, oh my god, how is he not dead yet? And then, to set up Rekindling, 3 Conduction Field, and to draw into my Rekindlings, 3 Pot of Greed, no, 3 Upstart Goblins, 2 Pot of Duality, 1 Gold Sarcophagus, and then, well, yeah, these guys. So, charity. At least on 3 occasions, I did resolve a Graceful Charity where I was discarding a Handmaiden plus another Laval, which got my deck rolling. On 2 occasions, I resolved a Painful Choice that put Handmaiden... Actually, I put 2 Handmaidens, 2 Cannoneers, and then something irrelevant like another Conduction Field or even a Breakthrough Skill into the graveyard, so I managed to at least get my 5 Lavals into grave that way. And then Pot of Greed is just Pot of Greed. I think in 1 turn I actually did manage to resolve this card, 2 Upstarts, and my set Reckless Greed, while also having a Librarian in play, so I drew at least 9 cards that turn. Like, on average, I usually got at least 10 cards into my deck after turn 1 or 2 via these cards, Upstarts, Recklesses, and cars. Like, the amount of deck thinning I was doing with this was crazy. I ran into the problem of decking out at least 3 times. And then, gotta have your back removal, so why not just go with 3 of the best? And, yeah, I mentioned I'm running Reckless Greeds. And, again, just negation to stop things like Nat Beast and Shien. Just negate it. And, on the plus side, if they storm or duster me, then I can just chain these from the graveyard and shut off shit on my turn. Speaking of storm and duster, I got to resolve multiple Recklesses during a turn where my opponent did use Harpy's Feather Duster, and it was wonderful. Oh, so much plus. And that's pretty much what this deck did, was it just plus, and plus, while also doing massive amounts of damage. Namely, due to this guy. Every time I drop Quasar, I won. But there are times where I did more than drop Quasar, and we'll get to that in a bit, but there's Quasar, your double attacker, negate everything, powered through a Gorz, and a Trag one time, did lots of damage. Like, this thing is stupid. And then when he leaves the field, you bring back this thing. Yeah, these 2 were kind of really good. And then for my level 8s, I ran Blader, Scrapdragon, Stardust Spark. I chose this over regular Stardust as I'm not really running much for back row protection, whereas this thing can protect himself, or he can even protect a Hyper Librarian, which is kind of really good. And, actually, we're going to save this guy for a bit. Then, for level 7s, level Stenin, Black Rose Dragon, and then 1 more that I'll get to in a bit. For level 6s, I ran the 1 level Dragoon. I really kind of wish I ran a Goyo or a Brionac, and I know what I would cut for it. One level Dragon, 1 level Dual Slasher, Hyper Librarian, and then 1 Catastor. I really didn't need this. If I was at the point where I was trying to do the Quasar play twice, then yeah, I didn't, like, I would just use the other one of these I didn't make for that. But this was just kind of there because I thought I would need it. I really regret running this. I probably should have ran Armor Arm instead, as that situation came up a couple times. And there was also a situation that came up where I wish I could have made Leo, because Blaster and Lakeside Lady is level 10, which is kind of really good. Leo keeps himself safe from Change of Heart, Brain Control, Snatch Steal, which are all kind of really good. One Formula Synchron, and then one Perellus, the Purple Pyrotile. This is another level 2 Synchro Tuner monster. It's a fire, which is food for Blaster. Unfortunately, its defense is only 1400, not 200, but that'd be stupid. And its effect is when it's sent from the field to the graveyard, your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack. It's an okay effect. The 500 attack loss actually basically made Quasar do 1,000 more damage, which was kind of really good. But aside from Quasar, though, the best card in this extra deck was Dark Strike Fighter. I mentioned how this deck in particular made it apparent why this thing needs errata. Oh my god, the shit I did with Dark Strike Fighter. If I had 2 Rekindlings and one of them involved making Quasar, the second Rekindling would bring out this guy, and it would bring out Librarian. No, it wouldn't bring out Librarian. I'm just trying to recreate that field, actually. It was these guys. So that's already a pretty big field in itself. And usually by then I had a Blaster, so I brought out a Blaster just to be safe. And, you know, because we need even more power, I decided, hey, let's bring out a level 4 as well. So this would be what would happen if I had 2 Rekindlings. Now let's think about the damage I'm doing here. In terms of direct attack damage in itself, that's a lot. But then you sack off all these things. You sack off that for 800, 1,000, 1,400, 2,400. Oh, Quasar left the field, so this comes back 2,000 more, and then finally 1,400 more. Disgusting. This is why Dark Strike Fighter is getting his once per turn and only in main phase 1, just because, like, I'm pretty sure my maximum damage output in a single turn with this deck was over 24,000, and it was, 24,300 damage in a single turn. That's stupid. Like, the power of Rekindling. As much as I want to say I'm going to miss playing with this deck and all, but I'm not going to lie. I'm really, 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 really happy that Rekindling's going to 1 just because of the stupid things you can do with that. And I'm sorry to love all players, but it just had to happen. There's just no way the card could continue to stay at 3. Thank God they finally hit it 2. It's been, what, Ancient Prophecy when that card came out? Like, yeah, they've had all this time to do something about the card, but they never did, and finally they did. I have to give Konami my applaud. Yeah. But anyway, that's it for my deck for traditional format. It was Lavals Quasar with several band cards in it. What am I going to run at the next time we do a traditional format? There's a couple things I've had in mind, one of which was Heroes, because in traditional format, you can play with Stratos, and you can play with 3 Emergency Call, you can play with 3 Hero Lives even. Stratos shenanigans seem really fun, but that'll be at around May, so I have a long time to decide what I'm going to do for traditional format. That being said, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, this is BlueStar899, jacking out.